Welcome. This is Daudi from Quality Assurance. In this presentation, I'm going to be demonstrating the new test workflow framework the Quality Assurance Code is developing for Dictionary Manager, which for the past has been known as OCL, and OpenMRS Reference Application. The automated tests that are being developed will support release versions and in the long run will reduce the maintenance burden for Dictionary Manager and as well OpenMRS Reference Application 2.x and 3.x versions. The ideal behind the automated tests is to get rid of manual testing and instead opt for automated testing whose benefits goes beyond imagination for OpenMRS community. Right now you are looking at the keyword dashboard that tracks the project status at any given time. The dashboard shows the current test status of different modules. And this status is picked from the last Bumble build of these respective modules. A test will always have a badge of either green, and that shows that the test is passing, or red, which is the opposite of green. And here you can see the platform core and the test status badge, which is green, meaning that they're passing. And then we have reference application, and we have tests for 2.x ref up that are showing their respective badges. And then we have the 3.x ref up, and also with its respective badges. Now here, red is on ref up 3.x login test, meaning that the test is failing. The current test status is failing. And then we have also the OpenMRS Dictionary Manager, and its status is green. Here is the technical workflow of the new test framework for OpenMRS reference application. This code is using BDD framework for E2E tests, and down are the 4 technical steps one can use to develop a test in BDD approach. Number 1, write user stories in the Genken future file. 2, bind the future file with either Cypress or Selenium step definitions using Cucumber framework. And number 3, enhance features with tags and hooks to guide the test workflow. And lastly, write the test workflow that triggers the test to run. Let's look at the technical steps workflow practically. Using one of the existing tests that is known as vitals and tracing, let's understand the 4 technical steps that we have seen above. 1, write user stories in the Genken future file. This is the future file for vitals and tracing. And in this future file, you write user stories. In brief, write what the user can do or what the user does on the system functionality. In Genken, we call them scenarios. And Genken uses a very simple syntax of given, when, then. Step number 2, binding the future file with either Cypress or Selenium steps definition. This is the steps definition, and Selenium was deployed. And in this definition, steps contains the equivalent Selenium methods that wraps the user stories that are present in the future file. The 3rd technical step is enhance the future file with tags and hooks to guide the test workflow. Going back to the future file, enhance these scenarios with tags, and these tags are the ones that guide the test workflow. And hooks are configured in the file called run test. Selenium offers this file where you can configure your hooks. And this is the file that does the magic of mapping the future file to its respective steps definition class. The configuration that does this are seated within run test, and these configuration are in Cucumber options here within the file. And the last technical step is writing the test workflow that triggers the test to run. The test workflow configuration is written in a hidden file with an extension of .yml. And so since this is a hidden file, let's go to the remote repository and we go to the workflows. And the workflow is here called vitals and trading. And this is the workflow. There are a lot of things that are happening behind the scene, but let me explain the two that I feel that are important for someone to understand. One is the name. This is the name that will be reflected on the test when the test is run on the GitHub Actions and will be reflected on the QA dashboard. Here, as you see, ref up 2.x vitals and trading. This is the name, and this name is configured within the workflow here. And then the second thing to understand is the command npm run vitals and trading. This is the command that will be used to trigger this test to run locally and also upstream. And so just one thing that you also need to do is configure this workflow that is called vitals and trading test in a file that is called package.json. Let me just navigate to it. Let me do a simple search. Yes, package.json. So configure this workflow, vitals and trading, in a script section of the file called package.json. And as you see here, vitals and trading. And this configuration triggers Maven test to filter and run user stories that are tagged at Selenium and at vitals. And the 4 technical steps are done. Here are the steps that one can use to run the test locally. Use the command maven clean install and first build the UI test framework, and then build distro reference application. And after building the 2 respective modules, then navigate to QaFramework module where your test has been developed and use the configured test command to trigger the test workflow to run. And after following the steps we have seen above, navigate to the repo, and I'm already within the module. Run the command npm run to see the list of the configured workflows. And we have configured vitals and trading. So trigger the workflow by running the command npm run vitals and trading test. There are some configurations you can do in the test.property file that is seated within the repo, like setting the web URL to point to your local instance, the web driver to either Chrome or Firefox, and in this case I've set to Chrome, as well headless value to either true or false. True means that the test will not be observed on the UI, whereas false, the test will be observed on the UI. There are 3 user stories written in the future file. The first user story that is under test now is when the data clerk enters vitals which are normal. In brief, values that are within the acceptable range. And here, the vitals are captured and the system saves the vitals. And the first user story is done. The second user story that is going to be triggered, and it has been triggered already, that is when the data clerk enters a vital which is below the minimum value of that given parameter. For example, the body temperature should not be less than 25 degrees Celsius. And here validation is called upon and alerts are thrown to the user until the user enters a vital that is not below the minimum value of that given vital. And the system will save the vitals until the user enters values that are within the acceptable range. And the second user story is done, and the last user story is when the user or the data clerk enters a vital that is above the maximum value of that given parameter. For example, the body temperature value should not exceed 43 degrees Celsius. And here you see here, this one maximum should not be 43, 99, 150. That's validation. Not until the user enters a vital that is within the range, the system then finally saves and the test is done. The build is green. That is a success. Amazing. Very interesting automation. And you can find QA references at our GitHub repo, QA wiki page, and Jira dashboard. The links have been provided in the description section of this video. And your support to the QA team and squad makes the difference for our community to see that automation is achieved in the long run. Thanks for watching and thanks for your precious time.